in so far. So thank you all for being here this morning, this afternoon, wherever you are. And I want to give thanks to Greta as well for making her time to do this. Please mute yourself if you're not talking. We will monitor the chat feature here. So if you have a question, just use the chat feature, chat box at the bottom of the screen, and we will get those to Greta. And I will turn it over to Ryan. Ryan is from MDL Group in Las Vegas. MDL has been using Greta as a consultant for probably a couple of years now. Is that accurate? And Ryan, it's all yours.
Thanks, John. I appreciate it. Thank you, everyone. I hope you all can hear me just okay. I have the privilege on behalf of MDL Group here in Las Vegas, Nevada, to introduce Greta. Our brokerage firm consists of about a dozen brokers from land, office, industrial, retail, the whole gamut, and from rookies to senior SIOR brokers, and all of us have engaged in this. And just to give you a little background on Greta, Greta is the president and CEO of Schulz Business Cell Solutions based in West Palm Beach. She has been involved in sales management, marketing, and training for almost 30 years. She is a national columnist of solutions in over 30 business journals across the country, and a contributing author to the New York Times bestsellers, Master of Sales. Greta has her own bestseller she's written called To Sell is Not to Sell. She is also a regular guest on the nationally syndicated Entrepreneurial Excellence radio show. As seen on business talk shows, ABC, NBC, Greta helps organizations improve their sales processes and builds their business on referrals. Greta is also noted motivational speaker, speaking to large corporations and organizations around the nation. A business graduate of the University of Miami, Greta is a happily married with 3 children. And our brokerage firm met yesterday. We had our broker meeting. We talked about Greta. I'm just going to share a couple notes because, again, I think everyone, no matter where you're at, can really benefit from it. And some of the things that we were talking about were, she makes you stretch. You find your own answers with Greta. She's a great sounding board. She causes you to pause. She creates that accountability. She makes us check in, and she keeps us accountable to our goals. And no matter who we are, I think she's been a great asset to the MDL Group here. And so without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Greta.
Thanks, Ryan. So how much you guys think I paid him to say all that? A lot. A lot. So let me tell you what we're going to do today. I want to talk to you guys about building your business through networking and referrals. Now, networking is kind of an interesting thing right now because not all of us can get back to the way we did network before. But that being said, what I'd like to do is start by talking about networking when you get back into kind of the real world. And then I want to convert it to what we can do now. So I think that's important to give you that foundation, and then we're going to build off it from there. Does that sound good to everybody? Not that it matters. I can't hear you. There's too many of you. So I'm going to take that as a yes. All right. So let's first talk about where we're networking. So go ahead and go to that page, just basically where we're networking. So right now, you guys are networking in a couple different places, all right? First, trade organizations, whether it's SIOR, CCIM, BOMA, there's lots of different ones, but what are the trade organizations that you are, that you're networking in? And by the way, if you aren't, you should be. If you're not a member of a trade organization, you absolutely should be joining one. Now, most organizations also have a Zoom meeting like this going on now, or some similar with Teams or something. So you should be a part of that. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But right now, some kind of a trade organization, you should be involved in it. And I understand that when you go to those, there's a lot of people that do what you do, a lot of competitors there. Well, why should I network there? Everybody does what I do. There's a lot of reasons. And one of them is oftentimes we form great alliances with people that we perceive as competitors. So that's important to remember. The other thing is a local non-industry association, like a chamber of commerce, some kind of a business group, a round table, something like that. Those are very important for you as well, because it gives you people outside of your industry that you want to be involved in. The next one is a charity organization, Heart Association, Cancer Society, whatever it is. Why should we be involved in charity organizations? Well, first of all, it's the right thing to do. And I think from what we've all been going through recently, we need to give back and we need to help. I think that's absolutely number one. We should feel, very blessed in what we have. The other reason is there are other people that feel that way as well. And in being able to network with somebody in something that you have in common outside of business is a really nice way to build relationships. So if you're not involved in a charity, I would get involved in one. Don't get involved in a charity just because everybody else is in it. You have to have some passion toward it, because that will be see-through if you don't. So do it for the right reasons. And then lastly, there are things like networking groups, leads groups like BNI, Business Network International. There's other ones like that. And there's other organizations. Some people have, through friends and other business associates, formed their own networking groups. So any of those can be done. But I wanted to start out, again, by talking about the type of organizations that you're involved in. Obviously, you're involved in this organization. And we're going to talk a little bit more about how you can utilize CorpAct probably more than you are. So we'll talk about that a little bit as well, because what an opportunity across the nation. And is it worldwide or is it nationwide?
Worldwide.
Okay, so it's even bigger. So that's a really, really important thing for you to know. And there's a lot of opportunities there. Crew.
Yeah,
Okay. I see what somebody's asking about Crew.
I'll send you the link right now.
Yeah, love Crew. Crew's great.
It had a password if you logged in via
Hey, Dom.
Logged in via the calendar invite is a password. If you log in with,
There we go.
Okay. But somebody also put a question in the chat that I actually saw pop up, and it was about Crew. I think Crew's a great organization. If you have a local Crew, I would join it. Here's the thing, guys. You need to go to every organization you can a couple of times and see which ones are good, and then zero in on them and jump in 100%. The problem with networking is that we join lots of organizations so our name is in the book, or so we show up and hand out business cards. That's not how you really build business. So decide which you want to be involved in and jump in 100%. That's very important. So yes, Crew is also a really good one. There's several of them out there. Just go check them out. And if you're going to join, jump in 100% or don't bother. Okay? All right. Thank you. So before I talk about the details of networking, which again, I'm going to talk about as if we were back out there, and then I'm going to convert it to where we are now. Before we talk about networking, the most important thing you need to understand is what is a strategic alliance, because that's the reason that you're networking, okay? Networking, ready for this? Write it down. Networking is not for prospecting. What? No, networking is not for prospecting. Ever been to a networking event where people are running around selling their wares, trying to do business with each other right there at the networking event? What do you do when you see people that do that? Okay, you run the other direction, right? So that's not what it's for. What networking is for is to build strategic alliances. What is a strategic alliance? A strategic alliance is someone that you build a one-on-one relationship with, that, let's say you go to lunch, you go to breakfast, you share with them what a good referral for you is or who you're trying to meet. They share that with you, and then you help build business back and forth by introducing each other when there's opportunities. Any of you have relationships like that now? Of course you do. Do they work better than cold calling? Of course they do. So what we want to do is we want to build more strategic alliances purposefully. And that's what I'm going to teach you how to do today. So there's 3 types of strategic alliances. The first type is a complementary product or service to yours. Great one for real estate is a real estate attorney. Let's see, there's a residential real estate person. A high-end residential real estate person is often a good complement to you. Even though they're selling something different, they also have relationships with people that you want to have relationships with. It could be an estate planning attorney. It could be a particular accountant that works with certain people. So there's lots and lots of them out there. But you want to think about a complementary product or service is when you engage with someone, they also are engaging with and working with this person as well. They naturally work when they're buying or leasing or selling real estate. They're also doing that with somebody. They're doing these services as well. Those are the complementary product ones. So that's the first type of service you want to look for as you're out there when you're networking. Second type of service is a second type of strategic alliance is someone calling on the same prospect that you are. Now, sometimes these first 2 categories overlap. What I'm talking about here is, let's say you are trying to talk to prospect every building owner in downtown Chicago. Okay. Well, who else is calling on, selling to every business or a building owner in downtown Chicago? Well, there's a lot of people. For example, it could be, yes, it's people in real estate, but who else is selling to them? Well, it could be somebody who's selling equipment and computers. It could be security equipment. It could be employment organizations. It could be office supplies and printing. It could be insurance. There's a lot of different things. So what I would like you to do, if you want some homework from here, and I can't check on you, but I would do this, write down the best prospects for you. So let's say a good prospect for you is, and like I said, let's just use Chicago. You are trying to sell or lease business that are from people that are business owners in downtown Chicago. So write that down. And then I want you to think about who are all the people, not real estate, forget real estate, who are all the people that sell to, call on, have relationships with the building owners in downtown Chicago. So the way you figure out the second category is write down who that person is and all the potential people that call on them. And then to the right, I have those categories that say name of company. So if you identify somebody that's calling on that person is the local commercial insurance representative, okay, so then your homework is, do I know that person? Do I know a good commercial insurance person? If you don't, then part of your job when you're networking is to figure out who that is. Could be networking, could be sharing with a strategic alliance. Like I said, we'll talk about that further. So that's what that number 2 is. Somebody calling on the same prospect as you, and it may or may not be a complementary product, okay? The third type of strategic alliance are the movers and shakers in your community. I hate that term, but we all know what it is. So when I say your community, it could be the community of real estate, could be the community of, wherever, Minneapolis. It doesn't matter. It could be geographic or it could be industry. But who are the people in your community that know everybody? Everybody likes them and respects them. And if you got a call from them, you would say, oh yeah, I'm going to take that call because you like and respect that person. That is a great strategic alliance, no matter what they do for a living. And that is what you want to be. Your job is to become a mover and shaker in your community, industry or geographic. You want to be the one that everybody knows and likes and respects. Now we're going to talk about how to do that. So let's move to the next page. So I'm going to take you back to a networking organization that you may have gone to previous to COVID. And then we'll talk a little bit after about how to put that together. So here's how typically networking works. We sign up for, I don't know, crew. We sign up for a crew. And they have an after hours business card exchange at the Cheesecake Factory, local restaurant, let's say, in your local area. So you sign up to go, and it's 4:30 that day, and you look at your watch and you go, I really just want to go home. But no, you're committed. So you go. You get in the car, and you're driving down to the Cheesecake Factory for this business card exchange. And your car really wants to go home, but no, you're going to go. So you drive there, you park, you take that long walk up to the front. You see that table with all the business, all the stickers, the little stickers with the names on them, and you put your name on, and you walk in and you see a room full of faces, and you don't know where to look or who to go to. So you desperately look for somebody that you know. Not necessarily somebody that you like, just somebody that you know. Hey, John, how you doing? How's family? How's business? Anything so you're not standing alone, right? And if you don't find somebody that you know, you do one of the 3 B's. You go to the bar, bathroom, or buffet, right? If it's an evening event, you get a cup of courage. You walk around, you shake a few hands, you hand out a few business cards, you get a few business cards. You do that a couple of months in a row, and then you go, I'm not going back. I didn't get any business from that. Right. Because that's not how it works, guys. So this is how it works. Like I said before, you are not there to prospect. You're there to find strategic alliances. So let's move this forward. Number 1, where do you network? In my opinion, you shouldn't have any more than about 4 organizations on a regular basis that you go to or that you are involved in, okay? Depending what they are, it's up to you. You already have Corfac. That's a huge one for you. So that's a nationwide, worldwide. There's a lot of things you can do there. There's some local ones, a lot of things we talked about. So no more than probably 4. Now, what I recommend that you do with each one of those is with each one of those, you should have a goal. My goal is always the same. I never get involved in or go to a networking event or a Zoom event without finding at least 2 potential strategic alliances. That's my number. Yours can be 1, 3, 5, whatever you want it to be. But I don't leave without 2. So what does that mean? That means I will work the room as best I can and meet as many people as I can till I find 2 people that I think are going to be good potential strategic alliances. And again, I'm going to talk about how to do this on a Zoom call. But right now, in person, you want to work the room. So how do you do that? Well, first thing, if you're going to meet as many people as you can, you're going to ask everybody basically the same 4 questions. At least that's what I do. What do you do? How long have you been involved in that or doing that? What do you like about it? Or how did you get involved in it? Something like that. The last question I always ask is, so if I was to run into a good referral for you, a good customer for you, who would that be? What would that look like? Why in the world would I ask that to somebody I just met? Because number 1, I'm finding out a little bit about them. Number 2, I'm asking about their favorite subject, which is them. And I am seeing who, just if they would be a good strategic alliance. Now, when I first started doing this, everybody that I talked to, I asked those questions and I thought, good, they'll all ask me those questions back and I have strategic alliances now with everybody I met. No. Because the old 80-20 rule is 80% of the people you talk to are going to answer those questions with, well, a good referral for me is anybody that you talk to that leases a building, because if they lease, then I can help them with this and I can help them with that. As a matter of fact, here's some brochures you can hand out. No. 20% of the people that you meet and talk to, you're going to connect with. You're going to ask those questions and they are going to ask you those back. And they're going to say, well, Greta, tell me about you. Tell me about your business. They're not going to be looking over your shoulder to somebody else. They're going to be actually interacting with you. When you find those people, those are the people that you want to say, you know what, rather than you and I standing around here, why don't we find some time outside of here that we can get together for a lunch or breakfast or whatever, one-on-one, and we can learn more about each other. So as we're out and about in the community with our own customers, we can help each other. What do you think? There's one. And I do that until I find two. So that's kind of the idea of what you do when you're physically networking. Now, a couple other things I'm going to add on to here, and then we're going to add how we can do this online. Okay. So a couple things. One, when talking about you, be specific. If at an event, somebody says to you, well, what's a good referral for you? If you're using the words anybody or somebody or anyone, you're probably doing it wrong because people think in triggers. So if you're going to tell somebody what you do, the best way to do that is be specific. And I'm going to give you some examples of being specific in a few minutes. But again, don't just tell them, well, I'm in commercial real estate. I can help anybody with commercial real estate. That doesn't mean anything to anyone. So you have to be specific. Giving examples will help you. And I'll get there in a couple of minutes. So I'll go back to that piece. Okay. So before you leave that meeting, find your strategic alliances, your potential ones, and set some appointments. One-on-ones, I recommend just going for coffee. Now you're going to have Zoom one-on-ones, and we'll talk about that. But even when you get out and about, even if you are starting to meet people outside, then meet them one-on-one for coffee. Committing to lunch is a lot of time, and frankly, it can be a lot of money if you do too many of those. So in my opinion, set Starbucks breakfast or something like that. And these kind of things, and I don't know about your particular areas of the country, but most places are now kind of doing one-on-ones. You probably can do this now in person. If you can't, that's okay. We can do that through Zoom and we'll talk about it. So the last thing I have here on this is Google Alerts. So when you are leaving a networking event, if you want to follow up with somebody, there's a couple of things you can do. If there's somebody that you want to find out more about, or let's say there's a particular industry that you want to keep up with. For example, if you want to find out more about manufacturing companies in Chicago, okay? Then you can put in Google Alerts. And Google Alerts, by the way, I don't know if everybody knows what it is. You can go to Google. If you have a Gmail account, then you have a Google account. If you don't, you can sign up for it for free. And then what you do is as you go into Google, there's an area called Alerts. And you click on that, and anything you want to know about, you can put in there, and every day when Google sweeps the web, it'll email you back that information. For example, you can put in, let's say you're trying to get to small business owners in Indiana, okay, in Indiana somewhere. So you can put down biggest challenges for small businesses in the state of Indiana. Okay, something like that. What you want to put in Google Alerts are things that people are thinking about, not necessarily about you, but it allows you to pull information. And then as you go through your database of people, you can say, hey, thought of you, thought you'd find this interesting, and you can send that to them. So that's what Google Alerts is for. It's a very good way, especially now, of being in front of somebody without just emailing them and saying, hey, have you thought more about selling that building yet? Have you thought more about your leasing? Because the more you do that, it's too salesy. This allows you to have other opportunities to be in front of somebody with things that they find of interest. I'm going to give you a quick story on this to help you understand. Several years ago, gosh, quite a few years ago now, but it sticks out to me. I was working with 2 hospices. Now I work with sales teams, and these 2 hospices, yes, hospices have sales teams. They call on hospitals, they call on, assisted living places, things like that. So at that time, I was working with two of them, and Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, had just come out at that time, and there was a lot of confusion with it. So what I did was I went into Google Alerts and I put in how Obamacare will affect hospice and end of life. Okay? I got a bunch of things, read through it, it was irrelevant. But one day I got something that was about one of the laws in Obamacare that directly affected hospice. So I took a link and I copied it and I sent it to the two CEOs. And I said, hey, I hope you find this helpful. And one of them emailed me back and said, thank you very much, we're aware of that. And the other one emailed me back and said, we didn't know anything about that. I'm going to bring that up in our next meeting. Thank you. Now, why would I do that? What does that have to do with sales coaching? Nothing. But it has to do with me being aware of what's important to them and what they're thinking about. It keeps an extra connection there of us and them when we haven't been able to connect on exactly what I do for them regularly. So for you guys, especially now, you're not able to see your clients all the time. What are they worried about? What are they thinking about? What's top of mind for them? That's what you want to put in Google Alerts. Okay? So now I want to talk about a strategic alliance get-together. Now, my recommendation is getting together one-on-one with people that you think are good strategic alliances. You may be able to do this in person. If not, there's a great way to do this online. So if you're members of any of those organizations, for example, I mean, today's a large one, but any of the organizations that you're involved in, and let's say you have committees or things like that, and you have other people that are part of these Zoom meetings for you. There is absolutely nothing wrong with, as we see the people that are in there and we get to know who they are, emailing them and saying, hey, you and I were on this meeting today. I wanted to learn more about what you do, how you do it, what makes you different. And if I can ever help you in my area, I would love to be able to do that. And same thing with me. I'd like to share with you what I do, how I do it, what my specialty is in my particular area. And so if we can help each other with referrals, I'd love to be able to do that. If they think that's a good idea, you guys set up a one-on-one Zoom meeting or Skype or whatever, and you can do this that way. Or if this is somebody local in your community, then you should be able to now set up one-on-one coffees to do this. Okay, so either way, but you have to set yourself goals with these one-on-ones after your group meetings, whether they're on the phone, whether they're in Zoom, okay, wherever they are, or they're at a networking function. You have to set yourself goals to set at least one or two of these strategic alliances outside of your networking meeting, or you're wasting your time. Okay, don't just show up to have your face show up. See who you want to connect one-on-one with, okay? So let me tell you what these one-on-ones are and how they work best for you. This is where your referrals are really going to happen, okay? So you want to let them know right up front, because some people don't, you're getting together one-on-one for coffee and they kind of go, okay, are they going to try to sell me? No, you want to be really clear of the purpose of this up front. You can say something like, thanks for getting together with me, Jane. I thought it'd be a good idea for me to ask some questions about you, your business, products, services. So, and I'm sure you'll have some questions for me. This will enable us to see if there's a link between our services that we provide and what we do, so we can help each other with referrals. Does that make sense? You can say that while you're networking or on your email to set it up. And then you say it again in your one-on-one meeting, okay? Be clear with the purpose. Some people still don't understand why you would get together one-on-one, and they assume you're trying to sell them something. You're not. So here's some ideas of questions. When you get together, you want to start out with letting them know why you're getting together. You always want to start out with a pad and a pen and ask about them first. It's always about them first. They are their own favorite subject. So what is it that you do in a little bit more detail? Because you obviously know what they do. You talked to them before. So in a little bit more detail, what separates you from the competition? Where do you find your customers? Who or what, is the best client for you and why? Describe to me a good referral for you. So that's a good thing to do, is have them describe a good referral for you. And I'll talk about a story in a minute. So if they can tell you a story of, here's an example of a good referral for me and why, that will really help you help them, right? Because a lot of people tend to say, well, any of your people that are, if you have somebody that you're leasing space to, that's a great referral to me. That's too big. So they have to tell you a little bit more detail of why. Now, once you go through these things with them, you're going to switch the tables and you're going to go through the same things with you. You're going to give them this same information. So you want to go through these same things and you want to discuss these same things with them and give them that information for you. Now, what's interesting about that is when you do this, I want you to think about, for this number 5, what a good referral for you is, and give a story. Give a story of something that you've done over and above your competitors. Give a story of something that will help them, because number 1, people remember stories better and they share stories. So I'm going to give you yet another example, a story that I'm going to tell you. Now, this story is not my story, but it is, but this is something that if I were this person, I would use the story. So let me give you this quickly. A few years ago, I got, as you can see, I'm wearing reading glasses, but I used to have regular glasses that I wore 24/7. I had like those Coke bottle ones, right? The really thick ones. I was completely blind. And I also had contacts that I wore constantly, and I wore them to bed. I wore them all the time, and I wasn't supposed to. So my husband gave me a gift certificate for getting LASIK surgery. So I went in, I saw the doctor, and he checked me and he said, Greta, you're perfect. LASIK surgery is perfect for you. The problem is you've been wearing your contacts so long and over wearing them that you've thinned your cornea. It's not dangerous, but there are some people that can get up right away and go immediately back to work after LASIK surgery. You're not one of them. You're going to need a few days to heal and it's going to be painful. So immediately I was like, whoa, painful. I don't do painful. And he said, okay, that's all right. I'm going to give you some pain medication and you'll fill it. And then that, you'll have it for that. Great. So we leave there. My husband drives me. We go to the Walgreens and we fill this prescription. It was Percocet. Wow. Anyway, it said take every 4 hours for pain. So I did. I don't want to be in pain. So about 2 days later, I wake up in the morning and I feel like I've got 2 daggers in my eyes. And I call the doctor and I go, oh my God, Dr. Salinger, my eyes are killing me. He goes, right, that's the scarring starting to happen. That's actually a good sign. I said, but it really hurts. And he goes, right, that's why I gave you that pain medicine. I said, well, you said to take that every 4 hours. And I did. He goes, well, your eyes were numb for the first 48 hours. I said, well, dude, I didn't know that. I don't have any more. So he said, okay, let me call over to the store, order you more, to Walgreens. He called me right back and said, listen, even if I'm a doctor, if it's a narcotic, they won't let me do it over the phone. I said, well, I can't drive. He said, look, I'm coming up to a break with patients. I'm going to drive up to Walgreens. This was in the next town. I'm going to drive to your Walgreens. I'm going to hand that in, and I'm going to ask them to rush it. And then I'm going to call your husband and have him come over and pick it up and bring it to you. Now, why do I tell that story? Because, oh my God, who does that? Now, if somebody said to me, I really want to get LASIK surgery, and I said, oh, go to Dr. Salinger, he has great customer service, what would that have meant? That story is very important. So I want all of you to think about a story for yourself, that you can share when somebody says, what's a good referral for you? Tell them something you've done. They will remember that. The more specific, the better. So that's what to do there. Now, the last thing I want to share with you here, before we kind of move along for questions is what's called a top 10 list. Okay? A top 10 list is something that when you do meet with somebody one-on-one, whether it's over the internet, whether you're on Zoom or on Skype, or whether you're meeting with somebody one-on-one, when it becomes your turn to talk about a good referral for you, I want you to tell that story, and then I want you to share, and a lot of people are uncomfortable with this, I want you to type out and share this top 10 list. Now, a top 10 list is a list of people or types of people that you would like to meet. It's not people that you've met and haven't closed the business. It's people that you would like to meet. So I'm going to point out a few ideas for you here of what I came up with in this example. Number one, CEO of an architectural firm in Henderson County. So that isn't, you read that out, and that's an example of a type of business, an architectural firm. So you could put there, the owner or CEO of a manufacturing firm in, Newark, New Jersey. Okay. So what you're doing is you're bringing thought about for that person, oh, an architectural firm. Okay. I don't know somebody there, but I know this guy in this architectural firm. Would that work? So you can come up with an idea there. Also, if you guys are the type that like to guest speak, you could say professional or networking organization looking for a guest speaker on market trends. People right now are not understanding what to do. Should I buy? Should I sell? Should I sit on it? So if you're willing to do that, put that down. You can also, if you look at, let's see, how about number 8? A top performing agent in the commercial insurance industry. Well, then an insurance person is good for you because they're a good alliance. Plus, they're talking to business people and they're talking to either CFOs or CEOs, because that's who signs commercial insurance forms. And I even have an estate planning attorney because that's a good alliance for you. So my whole point here is what you want to do is you want to be specific on who you want to meet. And it's a heck of a lot easier to have it written down. So if you feel uncomfortable at the end of your one-on-one meeting on the phone or in person, you can send that to them or show it to them and say, look, I actually typed these out. Let me go through them with you. I'm embarrassed that I did that, but this is the easiest way for me to remember. 99% of the time, that person's going to look at this and go, oh my God, what a good idea. How do you do this? If they say that, here's what you do. You say, you explain to them what I just explained to you, and you say, if you will take time to do this and send it to me, I'll share it with the other people in my office and maybe we can help you. Now you're a hero. Okay. So that's what a top 10 list is. So that's what's important. Now, before we open up for questions, I wanted to make sure, how do you do this online? Well, number one, you're not going to be able to walk around because you're going to be on an online call. But remember, as people introduce themselves on that call, take note of everyone and make sure that when you introduce yourself, you come up with, not just, I'm in commercial real estate. Come up with another term. I help people, find their new home for their business or something so people remember you, okay? Ask specific questions when you're in those group meetings and zero in on a couple of people that you think would be good one-on-ones. And then you can email them after and let them know exactly what you'd like to do one-on-one. And if they're local, you can get together at a local coffee shop if that's possible. If not, then set up a Skype or a Zoom or a Teams or some kind of a one-on-one call. Be very specific about what you're trying to do with them. And believe me, everyone is dying to get out and begin to talk business again. I had all the MDL guys doing this now, and they're all doing it, and it's starting to really grow because people are wanting this kind of interaction. So that's what I recommend you do now from any of your calls online. Set the one-on-ones, set yourself goals in each one of those. Okay, now open for questions.
Anyone?
Patrice Berry in Denver. How often, after you have a one-on-one, how often do you suggest following up?
Patrice, that is a great question. Excellent question. Okay, so a couple of things. When you have a one-on-one, you may also decide after the one-on-one, I don't think this person is a good strategic alliance. That's okay. But if you do decide they are, there's a couple of things you can do. Number one, I would try right there to try to set them up with somebody. Now, I don't necessarily mean a customer, because you may not be ready to do that. You may not be comfortable, and you may not have anybody. But if you like this person and respect them and you feel like you're comfortable, then I would immediately try to set them up with somebody else that you know, another strategic alliance for them. So in other words, if they're an insurance person and they call specifically on, I don't know, manufacturers, I keep picking on the same thing, then you may want to say, look, I know somebody else who sells payroll services to manufacturers. Let me set you up with them. The two of you would be good alliances. So I would do that. Now, if that's not the situation, then I would put them, what I do with mine is I put them in a separate file on my desktop, and I just have an SA. And so they become my strategic alliances. And periodically, I would say probably once a quarter minimally, I'll go back in and say, have I spoken to them? Have I set another one-on-one? And what I'll do, Patrice, is if there's, for example, there was a new hospital administrator in our community, and I didn't know anybody who knew them. And I'm not a big proponent of cold calling. So I thought, okay, somebody I know has got to know them. So I went into my group of strategic alliances, which I have quite a few in there now, but guys, I need your help. I'm trying to meet the new administrator from Jupiter Medical Center. Does somebody know them? And I'm getting answers right and left. Hey, can you introduce me? And one of the guys in there called on this guy at his old hospital. So we're setting up, after all this, we're going to set up a lunch for the three of us. So you want to keep the good ones and start building them. But I would say minimum of once a quarter. Okay.
Hi, okay, is that done? Hi, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, hi, Kurt Walsh from Chicago. I like the idea of these 4 organizations to highlight and frequently attend, but I would think you have to maybe redo those ever so often. And so how do you decide on how to drop one of the organizations and add others?
Great idea. That's a great question, Kurt. Okay, so you do have some smart people in this group. Okay, I admit it. Yeah, that's a really good question.
Oh,
So,
you did it. Oh, my God. You won me over. I love when people tell me I'm smart because I have to agree.
Hey,
Okay.
Kurt, I didn't say you were smart. I said your question was smart. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, that's good. Okay.
Okay, so
Wow,
couple
Kurt,
things.
thank you.
You're absolutely right. You don't want to be involved in everything in town. So what I would do is let's evaluate now. Let's say you have 4 groups. Go to every one of them or go online with every one of them and set one-on-ones. If you're getting good strategic alliances out of them, then they probably have members that are on your same vein of thought. So try to set several strategic alliances out of each group. You will start finding out that some groups have members that get it and some have members that don't. So that's how I would assess it. You know, sometimes like we have, like the one woman was asked me about crew. Our crew here is really, really good. So, and I think often that's a reflection of the leaders, right? Jonathan and some of these other, this is apparently because MDL talks highly about Corpac. Obviously, this is a good group. That comes from the leaders. So when you are involved in an organization, make sure you put 100% in and get some one-on-ones with as many people as you can. Become a mover and shaker there. If it's not continuing to evolve business and help you in other ways, then it's time to replace. But give it 100% before you do that. Okay.
Okay. Thanks. That's good. So where are you located? I'm sorry. If you met,
Florida. I'm in Florida.
Where in Florida?
I'm in Jupiter, Palm Beach County area.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Yep. More questions? You have a question, Joe? No? Okay. Is that really your background? Because it looks like you got a very, very fancy window behind you.
That is the wonderful backdrop of the downtown Wilmington, Delaware area, which is my marketplace.
I love Wilmington. I used to have a client there.
So
It's hard to get into though. By the time you fly there and get a car and everything else, it's a long way, but it's a great area.
fly into Philadelphia and you're here in 20 minutes, 25 minutes from the airport. Not a problem.
Why did I not fly into Philadelphia? I don't know. I flew into somewhere else in Delaware, I guess. I don't know. It was a long time ago. Anyway. All right. Any more questions?
Actually, Patrice Berry again. Oh, wait. Can you? Okay. Yeah, I actually have a question of the group since we're all together. I like this Google Alerts concept. And in our current time, does the group have any ideas on how you might use this and a question to put into Google Alerts that would sort of, not that we all have to do the same thing, but just like brainstorm some ideas that you might think would be good to reach out on?
Yeah, that's smart. Remember, before you all answer, well, the one thing you want to remember is think about who your customers are. What are they thinking about? So obviously it could be something about COVID, but you want to do something, maybe more, the old saying is what's keeping you up at night, which is very salesy, and I don't like that. But if you think in that concept, that often is what you want to think about putting in Google Alerts. And there's nothing wrong with doing something about real estate as well. So a couple of things. So go, whoever.
I think it's helpful. This is Marco with King Industrial in Atlanta. I think you should definitely have your top 10 people there. If you've got their names, it would be a perfectly great opportunity to congratulate someone if they're in a press release or in the news, and shoot them a quick email. Everybody loves compliments, as demonstrated by Kurt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what I've used it for, Patrice, is especially for hot prospects, as we call them, where we've had meetings and we're wanting to maintain a dialogue yet, but they haven't given us an assignment yet. So I'll put that organization name in that so that I can track all the news and then comment accordingly.
Yep. Good ideas. Anybody have any other ones? Those are all good ones. Not just Kurt. I mean, everybody else had good ones too.
This is a kind of ancillary to Google Alerts. I subscribe to all my local newspapers, and there's a lot of local newspapers. I subscribe electronically with a lot of information about target companies, and that's information you're not going to get from the big major news channels or websites. So it's always nice to take a clip from a local newspaper or forward with relevant information to people that you network with.
You're absolutely right, Marco. And I used to call that section, years ago, I used to call it making Swiss cheese out of your newspaper, because that's what you used to do, right? Cut it out and send it to them. So now you can send a link. But the other thing I would do, guys, if you have some pillars of business, in other words, and I keep picking on the same things like manufacturing or, small business, whatever it is that you have. If you have that, see if there's newsletters from their associations. And I would sign up for their newsletters and their associations. Ask them what they're a part of so you can really know what's going on. And you will be an expert in their industry in addition to an expert in your own. So if you have a lot of people or you're going after a particular type of industry, I'm sure they have association newsletters or whatever, press release, whatever that goes out. I would sign up for those. That'll give you a lot of good information. And like Marco said, to send them things that are, hey, congratulations, I see you got this award. They're going to be like, what? How did you even know about that? So that's another really good thing to do.
Greta, quick question for you. In today's world, people do business with people they know. And what's a great way that you think would be to kind of remove the obscurity around yourself, because people don't want to do business with people that they don't know?
Right. So when you say erase the obscurity around yourself. Tell me a little bit more about what you mean. And then
I mean, I guess making sure that people know that you are a qualified individual and are a leader and a top producer in your industry, and qualified to do what and provide the information that you are.
Okay, good. So what's interesting about that type of a question, like we want people to know right away that we know our stuff, that we are, all of those things. That's also why we put all those things on our business card, all of that. You know how people know what we know? By the questions that we ask, right? Think about people that we think are the smartest people, and they don't talk about how smart they are, and they don't talk about everything that they do. The people that we're most impressed with when we meet them ask about us, ask smart questions, ask interesting questions, and don't tell a lot about us, right? We walk away and we go, wow, that person's really sharp. I really like them. Because they ask about our favorite subject. So to me, you're going to make your biggest impression in asking about, that's why I have those 4 questions down. And those are pretty basic questions, but anybody you meet, tell me about you. That's so interesting. How long have you been in that business? Wow, how did you get in that? Well, what do you I think the more you do that, and then you can ask questions in other words, when you start asking questions in the line of real estate, when you get to that, asking really good thought-provoking questions will tell them what you know. It's interesting. Sometimes I'll ask people a question and they'll say to me, oh, that's a really good point. I didn't make a point. All I did was ask a question. But the point was made in their own head, right? That's how true respect and interaction happens. So we don't want to tell them that. We want to ask good questions to get them to walk away and be impressed with us that we asked about them.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah. We've got a few more minutes. Any more?
Okay. Sorry to put you on the spot, but like, who do you have on your list of movers and shakers?
Okay, so for me, it depends on my area. I actually have several. I have local people that are people in our community that everybody knows, right? They're the people, which hopefully I'm one of them, right? That when I walk into, and one of the places that I do a lot of local networking is called the Business Development Board. It's basically that, you all have that. It's an economic development arm where right. So I have the head of that, some board members on that, and people that when you walk into the room, so everybody knows and likes those people and respects them. I don't necessarily care what their position is, because there are a lot of people that have big positions that are not respected, right? But those are the people that I typically have. But I also have people like Chaim, okay? Chaim is I don't know how many of you know him. I don't know if you all know him. And, he's the guy at MDL. He's the senior guy there. He's an extremely impressive guy. And I mean, he's the one who set this up for me. Because what he does is he always thinks about helping other people. He wanted to do this to help you guys, and he also wanted to do it to help me, which I thought was nice. So my list of people are almost always people that get it. That's really what I look for, Kurt. People that get it. When people understand, they ask me questions about me, I ask about them, and they say, listen, I want to introduce you to somebody. Their mind is thinking because they get it. They're not takers, they're givers. That's who I have on my list, whoever they are.
Well, really good answer, and really good point about mentioning Chaim, because yeah, he's a keeper. Okay.
He really
thanks.
is. He's so sharp. I wish I had every client like him. If they were all that smart, I'd be very successful. So, all right, we probably have time for one more question.
This is Cole Sweet from TRI in Sacramento. You mentioned that you do work, I guess, on a consulting basis with MDL Group right now with their brokers.
Yes.
I mean, can you kind of talk briefly about what kind of work you're working on with them, or what kind of plan you've implemented with them? Is it a cold calling plan? Is it similar to what we're talking about right now, that kind of stuff? Or?
Yeah, some of what we're talking about right now is it. I mean, you know, it depends. I mean, for example, with MDL, they have some people that were new and green. And
Yes.
so we're working on a cold calling plan with them. We also have some people, do you guys know, some of you that are real about, you probably know Jared Katz as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
So Jared, and he has a partner, Galit, right? And they work their team, they work together all the time. They've been around for a long time. They know lots of people. The last thing I would set them up with, here's a cold call plan, right? So for them, this networking thing is huge for them. I also set up some things with them, for example, called the strategic roundtable and some other additional things. So that is some stuff I do on the prospecting side. The other thing though, that is the kind of foundation of what I set everybody up with is a way of actually having the proper interaction. In other words, really consultative selling, asking good questions, making sure you summarize at the end of each one, always set a clear next step, never go out and tout your wares. So there's a whole process to selling itself. So that's part of that. And then also I work with Chaim on how to better lead them to do some of these things. So he's not managing every day, he's helping them lead so they can do some of the stuff on their own. So it's a combination of sales, training one-on-one, whether it's cold calling, networking, alliance building, how to, when you do get in front of somebody, how to have a better consultative call. Even though they call up and say, how much is this property? Just tell me how much it is. How do you get through that? Those kind of things.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Hey, Greta, not to put you on the spot like Kurt said, but so everybody here is part of Corfac, and
Yes.
some know the resources and what's available better than others. If you were to leave everybody with one thought about utilizing Corfac to the best of their ability to just build relationships, to do more business together, what would it be?
Okay, you're not putting me on the spot. You and I talked about that, and let's talk about that now. So, okay, for you guys, if you are all part
Sorry, excuse me. That's a little bit of a setup. Okay, I just have to say. Okay.
you know, it actually could be, but I don't care. I think it's a pretty damn good question. I'm doing it anyway. So anyway, so here's the thing. What a great opportunity for you to build relationships. And so there's a couple of things I would do. Number one, whenever you are on these kind of meetings, this is a larger one, but any smaller meetings that they have, I would do the same thing I was telling earlier. Make sure you reach out to some of the people that are asking questions that you say, hey, I should get together with them one-on-one. The other thing I would do is I would look through the website and see where people are located and what they do. So I would reach out. I don't know why you guys wouldn't take an opportunity right now to reach out, even if you do one a week, and go through the list of all the members and say, okay, I am going to call one person a week in the same business that I'm in, but obviously not in my community. And I'm going to set up a one-on-one so we can maybe brainstorm back and forth. Kind of like what you were saying before about, guys, let's brainstorm what we do on Google Alerts. So number one, I would do that. Number two, I would try to find some people that have some nationwide presence and see where they might have other opportunities. So I would absolutely make a minimum of one connection a week and try to set up some one-on-one Skype or Zoom or whatever with somebody in Corfac. The opportunity you have there, you're missing if you don't do that. I mean, the knowledge that is in and around this group is very vast. And just because somebody's in a different community doesn't mean the same won't apply for you. So I think you're missing the boat if you don't reach out. And at least that would be my goal. One per week. Look them up, see who you think, send them an email and say, hey, you know, we've all been kind of sitting around, we have the same business, why don't we do some, whether it's networking or why don't we just pick each other's brain a little bit, do some brainstorming on what our best practices are. And the other thing you can do is, I talk about something called a strategic roundtable, which you can do a shorter version of that where you can, you know, maybe pull one person that does exactly what you do in 5 or 6 different communities through Corfac and say, hey, I want to set up a Zoom call We all do the same thing, but we don't compete because we're in different communities. I want to go ahead and set that up. I'd like us to brainstorm on ideas of what we're doing. Here's the date and time I'm looking at. Would you like to be a part of it? So I would absolutely do that as well. So those are the kind of things that I would proactively set, because that is what's going to make you a mover and shaker in your community of core fact.
And Kurt, you're right. It was a slow pitch down the middle of the plate.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. So on that note, Greta, thank you so much for doing this for us. It was incredibly valuable. Ryan, thanks for stepping in and introducing Greta. And thank you all who were part of the call. We had 63 at the maximum on the call, which is great. Great exchange. This is being recorded, so we will send the link to you. And I would just say, like I always do, if you have any ideas of future programming, we've tried to keep them interesting. We've tried to keep them topical. But if you have any ideas, send them to me, Christy, Jennifer, and we'd love to have them. So on that note, unless there's any other feedback, thank you all very much.
Thank you,
I
guys.
just want to say, great. This was a great webinar. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
so
you very much.
Hi, guys.
All right.
You.